But especially Savathun as well. Very impressed with how they've done her character. Her design looks incredible. Like this giant
inspired
moth demon, like skeleton.
Can we talk about something on that for a second?
Cool.
Because there's a really cool thing that I think people have missed. And this kind of relates to the Season of the Lost, so little spoilers there if you've not played the first mission. The end of Season of the Lost's first mission, of course, you meet Savathun entombed within that big construct.
Very cool.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's a spawn-in animation for that. And it names it within the Eververse store as, quote, the Chrysalis. And then in the next thing where it's Witch Queen, she has grown butterfly wings, which is a very neat little
kind
tie
of cocoon.
in there. Because so it's a cocoon literally for her metamorphosis.
It just looks so cool. Like it's one of those. It really, like, watching the trailer, it really gave me a lot of like Taken King and Forsaken vibes, pretty much. Like it just looks like both of those, especially the Savathun's throne world. It looks a lot like the Dreaming City, which is a good thing. Just, a very, very good thing. And you would imagine it's, I mean, the Dreadnought was the past benchmark of like a really good destination that was well fleshed out. And obviously Forsaken, just with the Dream City, destroyed that. That was just so ridiculously intricate and had so many puzzles and secrets. And I would imagine, from what Bungie have said, Savathun's throne world is going to be hopefully a step up. Obviously, can't imagine like Luke said, we're not going to get like the size and scope of Forsaken, but I do think with her throne world, they are going to go all out with just secrets and puzzles and just like plus it's a throne world, so it's kind of like a fantasy dimension where anything goes. It's not the real world, so they can just make stuff up. It gives them a license to just do whatever. It's pretty much like Oryx's raid inside there. It's just like anything goes. So expecting to see some weird stuff, but Savathun as a character, very impressed. And also, like we've been saying many times in pretty much all the episodes, you asking about like when do you think we'll actually see her? We're going to face her. She'll be an enemy. And I was saying about how like it would be such a letdown if she was just this, I'm a villain, I'm here to kill you, bad guy. It's just, she's so much more complex, and she has motives, and she's like being trickery. You don't know whether she's lying. You don't know whether she's telling the truth. She's like abducted Osiris, and it's also that as well. Very impressive. The fact that because in the cutscene it was very interesting, because again I always love the perspectives. They're playing very heavily on the idea of perspective and how you think you're the good guys and the light and all this, but really from my perspective we're just two people both using different powers. But she was saying how she's kind of like helped us out and orchestrated the past couple seasons, and through Osiris been fighting her other sister Xivu. So she is kind of like, obviously again you don't know how much you can trust her, but she has kind of been helping us out in some ways, but she has been screwing us over in other ways. So that's just what I enjoy. It's a complex, the character development and just the character in general is very well done, because you don't know exactly what she's up to. You don't know, like, is she genuinely going to be on our side? Is she just using us for something? Like, you don't know her motive. So just hats off to Bungie in terms of her character development, because, again, she's not just a villain that's showing up here to kill you. She has really complex motives, and you don't really know where you stand. So I always love that.
So this, I think, is actually the biggest point that I think people might miss, but something which I think needs to be highlighted, which is effectively the story of the Witch Queen expansion itself actually started 4 months ago, back in the Season of the Splicer. And the reason I say that is because of this. I mean, you could even say it went all the way back to the Season of the Hunt, but I'm going to say Season of the Splicer.
Or Forsaken.
I mean, potentially, but the really big wind-up for it all, for me, starts when Savathun starts to enter the story within these seasons. And we get this introduction to it, and we have that capstone moment of the season where Osiris flees, basically. And then, of course, in the first mission of the Season of the Lost, we find out that Osiris, of course, has been possessed by Savathun. And this is much to the chagrin of Saint 14, and much to the shock of most of the player base who hadn't been spoiled of these things. Because, of course, this was in spoilers. But the incredible thing about all of this is it gives us now the same kind of character development that we could have gotten from Saint 14 and Mithrax, right? And we have room for that stuff to breathe, which is going to make it feel better. So, as a way of proving the point, I'm going to depart from the Savathun point for a moment and talk about Saint and Mithrax, right? Imagine if the Season of the Splicer was instead a campaign, and if in the space of 6 hours, Saint 14 went from hating Mithrax's guts because he was a fallen, to standing by him and saying, your people are my people. You know? Imagine that, how silly that would feel after 6 hours. Instead, the Season of the Splicer took two characters that clearly had a lot of motive to be against each other, and then they stood there and they had character dynamics that developed over the weeks and through the seasons, and that gave this sense of real time and real progression. And it gave Saint, in our own perspective, time to then sit there and really challenge his own beliefs and then land upon a new set of beliefs and really develop as a character. And that's genius, because you went from Saint the Crusader who killed all the Fallen to Saint who is protecting the Elixni in the Elixni Quarter. Here's the thing. End of the story mission for the first mission, the Season of the Lost, we sat down, we had a cutscene with Savathun. Every single week there might be an instance where we sit down and talk with Savathun at the Crystal.
Probably, yeah.
And if that's the case, her story has effectively started now. And Witch Queen, instead of being an expansion that has to tell the entire story of one of Destiny's greatest villains in the amount of time that it has, can start telling that story now. And it gives us a degree of history with this villain. You know, this is effectively, you know, one of the few times this has been done before is us killing Crota and giving us motive on the side of reasons why we know Oryx has been pissed off. You know, this is the same kind of development turned up to 11 in a certain sense, because you're actually sitting down and talking with Savathun. She's actively going to be manipulating you because, let's be honest, you know, that's entirely what she did. That entire recounting in the cutscene of what she did to help us, I mean, that was all gaslighting, basically. That was all lies and deception, all complete deceit. Like, totally trying to change our worldview in accordance to what was happening, but also what absolutely was not her motive. And so it's one of these things where you can sit down and you can say, she is going to, by default, be a better villain than any other villain in Destiny has been before, because she's been given room to develop and room to breathe. Every single week, we are going to get something with Savathun, either by her being mentioned by the characters or her talking to us at the Crystal at the end of the week.
Yeah.
That is going to change the dynamic. It's going to mean that however she does it, when she eventually escapes at the end of the Season of the Lost, because I presume she's got to, and makes her way back to her throne world, it's going to be one of these moments of, okay, this just got personal. So suddenly we have this really fantastic build-up for a villain. And the campaign already, as a result, is going to be a 9 out of 10 for story stuff. It's really going to be about what Bungie does. Biggest thing of all. I don't think that with this kind of development, Savathun even needs to be a raid villain. And I say that knowing that previously I've always endorsed the raid as like the capstone to a 3-act structure. But we have months of time to sit here and listen with Savathun and really develop what's going on. And if that's the case, we get to sit here and actually build that relationship, build that character, and the campaign can be the capstone all on its own. And it can be a marvelous capstone because she's made Hive Guardians. She's made Hive Lightbearers. That in itself is the end game threat. That in itself is huge. It changes the entirety of the world. She's already done enough as a statement to be Destiny's best villain to date, full stop.
Oh yeah, easy.